A warrior from the fairy world must find the antidote to an evil potion before the king of the dark forest destroys her entire species with his secret army. Today we're going to recap the story of the movie, Strange Magic, from 2015. In a magical kingdom, two worlds are divided, the fairy kingdom and the dark forest. Both are separated by a border covered in flowers called spring, from which the legendary love potion can be created. On this border, the fairy princess, called Marianne, flies through the fields in search of this flower. However, she accidentally wanders into the dark forest and the goblins try to attack her. Fortunately, she manages to escape in time, but the creatures decide to warn the king about the invasion. Minutes later, they arrive at a large palace, where they find King Bog, a tyrannical being who, on finding out about the fairy who crossed the border, orders his subjects to destroy the spring flowers. As a result, no one will be able to create the love potion that the king despises so much. So one of his goblins sets off to obey Bog's order, but is prevented by his mother, Griselda. Unlike her son, she wants to bring love back to the dark forest and will not allow the spring flowers to be destroyed. Meanwhile, Marianne is back in the fairy kingdom and meets her future husband, the warrior Roland. The fairy tells him what happened and says that when the two of them get married, she intends to unite her kingdom with the dark forest, so that everyone can live in perfect harmony. However, Roland seems to have other interests, as he intends to raise an army as soon as he becomes king. Despite this, the fairy is completely in love with him and is counting down the minutes to their wedding. The two say goodbye and Marianne travels around the kingdom, singing happily about their future union. However, a few minutes later, she finds Roland in another part of the forest, kissing another fairy. This betrayal, right on her wedding day, leaves her devastated and, even with her sister Dawn trying to console her, the princess isolates herself in her room and vows never to fall in love with anyone again. After thinking about what happened, she flees into the forest and changes her wedding dress for her warrior outfit. Nearby, Dawn continues to worry about her sister, but at the same time, she can't wait to attend the spring ball and find true love. To help her with this, Dawn enlists the help of her best friend, the elf Sunny. The two of them have fun while they come up with a plan for the ball, but just then, a huge lizard appears in a cave and attacks the pair. Thanks to her wings, Dawn escapes easily, but Sunny can only rely on his little legs to get away. The lizard is about to catch up with him, but Marianne appears and throws nuts at the animal. Even so, it continues to chase its friends, so Marianne throws the blackberries at the lizard and it lets out a loud roar of fury. This frightens the animal and it returns to its cave. The confusion is over, but Marianne scolds Dawn and is furious that she risked her life. However, their conversation is interrupted when they realize that Sunny has fled to the dark forest. There, the elf hides, but is soon found by the goblins. Luckily, Marianne manages to pull him back to the fairy kingdom and the group leaves before any more trouble arises. On the way back, the two sisters talk about the ball, but Marianne doesn't want to hear any more about it. Nevertheless, when she gets home, her father, the fairy king, convinces her to take part and, even against her will, she decides to go along. The ball begins and everything is going well, but soon Marianne is enraged to find Roland at the party. He apologizes to the fairy for what happened, but he does it only to secure his future as king, not because he really loves her. However, Marianne is not fooled by this and throws him out of the party, proving that she is much better off without him. Even after this embarrassment, Roland doesn't want to give up on his plan and tries one last trick, the legendary love potion. If he gets hold of the potion and throws it at Marianne, or even Dawn, one of them will fall in love with Roland and the marriage will make him king. However, only the fairy Sugar Plum can make this potion, and for years, she has disappeared into the dark forest. While thinking about how to get the potion, Roland sees Sunny outside the party, watching Princess Dawn with admiration. He soon realizes that the elf has a secret crush on the fairy and decides to use this to his advantage. Roland promises to help Sunny win Dawn if he gets the love potion from Sugar Plum in the dark forest. The elf accepts the offer and, the next day, he takes one of the petals of the spring flower and crosses the border. Unbeknownst to him, the goblins announce his arrival and King Bog orders the invader to be captured immediately. Shortly afterwards, Sunny continues to make his way through the forest, until he is attacked by a small imp. However, the creature proves to be docile and guides the elf in his search for the Sugar Plum Fairy. Far away, in the fairy world, Marianne trains her skills as a warrior, until she is interrupted by her father. He insists that his daughter find someone she can marry, but the young woman is still disillusioned with love and prefers to remain alone. Realizing that he won't be able to convince her, the king asks Marianne to help her sister find a worthy partner. While the two of them talk, Sunny walks through the gloomy forest alongside the imp and the two of them go down a cliff covered in mist. They reach a cave and the little creature tells Sunny to follow it. The elf obeys, and while exploring the place, he finds the sugar plum fairy, trapped in a kind of magical orb. He tells her that he needs her to make the love potion, and in return, he will free her from her prison. The fairy accepts the deal and, with the petal of the spring flower, she produces a pot with the love potion. She also warns him that for the potion to work, he have to throw the powder from the jar in the face of the person he loves, and when they open their eyes, they will fall in love with the first person they meet. Aware of this rule, the elf decides to return to his kingdom, but not before fulfilling the agreement and freeing Sugar Plum. The fairy is so happy to be free that she can't contain her excitement and starts singing for everyone to hear. The problem is that King Bog also hears her, just as his mother is trying to convince him to bring love back to the forest. However, her son doesn't care and sets off in search of the fairy, but when he gets there, he discovers that she has run away. So he sets off the alarm and sends his subjects after her as soon as possible. Because of this, Sunny runs desperately for the exit, only for the fairy to continue singing with joy, which attracts more goblins towards them. After a lot of running around, Sunny reaches a bridge in the shape of a log and manages to escape over it. However, Sugar Plum isn't as lucky and is captured by King Bog, who is furious to discover that the fairy has made the love potion and given it to an elf from the fairy kingdom. Because of this, Bog gathers his entire army and sets off in search of the invader and the potion. Hours pass and the people of the fairy kingdom organize the spring festival. Once again, Marianne is forced to go to look after her sister, and once again, she feels disgusted by Roland's presence. At the same time, Sunny gives a musical performance and tries to get Dawn's attention, but she only has eyes for the soldiers at the party. Discouraged by this, Sunny decides to use the love potion, but the lid of the bottle is too tight. To make matters worse, King Bog's goblins invade the party and start attacking everyone. In addition to them, the little imp also appears and tries to take the love potion from Sunny's hands. The two of them fight over the vial, until finally, the lid is removed and the potion dust gets all over Dawn's face. However, before she can open her eyes, the goblins put her into a sack. Marianne and Sunny try to save the girl, but both are easily stopped by the creatures. Thanks to this, the little imp takes the vial of love potion and runs off with it, heading for the dark forest. In the middle of all this confusion, King Bog appears and orders Marianne to return the potion, but she resists and punches him right in the face. Enraged, the king tries to attack her, but Sunny stops him, saying that it was he who asked the Sugar Plum Fairy to create the love potion. Upon hearing this, Bog warns everyone that if the love potion isn't delivered by the time the moon sets, Dawn will never return to the fairy kingdom. After Bog leaves, Marianne decides to rescue her sister, but Roland interferes and tries to convince the king to give him an army to save Dawn. The king accepts the proposal, but Marianne sets off alone in search of Dawn, as she doesn't want Roland's help. The king doesn't approve of his daughter's decision and is even more enraged when he sees Sunny, who is largely responsible for all the trouble. He says that if the elf doesn't bring his daughter back, he will be severely punished. With no other choice, Sunny asks the other elves for help, but no one is willing to go with him, apart from a big elf. So the two set off in search of Dawn in the dark forest. Later, King Bog orders his subjects to bring the princess. They take her to Bog, unaware that the girl is under the influence of the love potion. Then, as Sugar Plum warned, Dawn falls in love with the first person she meets, none other than King Bog. Dawn becomes so obsessed with him that the king gets upset and has the princess taken to prison. Meanwhile, Marianne reaches the border between the kingdoms and crosses into the dark forest. She encounters strangely shaped flowers, huge cobwebs and goblins everywhere, but she still pushes on, determined to rescue her sister. At the same time, Sunny and the big elf get on flying insects and set off in search of the love potion, which is with the imp. They soon find him and try to lasso him with a rope, but the imp manages to dodge and gets the two people tied to a plant. Soon after, the lizard that almost devoured Sunny reappears, along with the imp. However, instead of attacking, the lizard turns out to be very docile, thanks to the effect of the love potion, and the imp decides to help the elf rescue Princess Dawn. The group sets off for the forest and meets Roland and his army on the way. The warrior uses his wits to make the elf feel guilty about what happened and, as well as taking his love potion, orders Sunny and his friends to help him get to the Bog King's palace. What neither of them knows is that Marianne has already arrived at the castle and, on seeing the king sitting on his throne, she reaches through the ceiling with her sword and sets out to attack him. Marianne orders the king to return her sister, but he proves adept at fencing and manages to block the princess's attacks with his staff. The two take off and strike blows in midair until Marianne throws a huge rock at Bog, who narrowly manages to dodge it. The duel gets fiercer and fiercer, until Bog catches the princess's sword with his staff and throws her away. In response, Marianne hits the king with her swift kicks and recovers her sword again. The young princess's skill enchants the king, but the two are soon exhausted by the effort of the duel. The fight ends in a draw, and while the two catch their breath, in the distance, they hear Dawn's voice. The girl is still under the influence of the love potion and sings non-stop to King Bog. On discovering this, Marianne goes to the palace prison and tries to free her sister, but the girl refuses to leave without her beloved king. Marianne doesn't know what to do, until she meets the Sugar Plum Fairy in another part of the prison. She asks the fairy to help her create an antidote, and Sugar Plum tells her that she'll need some ingredients. Bog decides to help her get the ingredients because he can no longer stand Princess Dawn's obsessive passion for him. Marianne agrees to join Bog on this quest, even though she is reluctant about the partnership. But before they can begin their quest, Griselda observes the duel between the two and believes that the princess is the key to reawakening love in her son. Because of this, she invites them both to dinner, before looking for the ingredients. When they arrive in the dining room, they both realize that Bog's mother has put together a romantic dinner just for them. As expected, Marianne and Bog don't like the idea and try to spoil the meal, but without meaning to, they end up having fun together. The moment of distraction is interrupted when Bog's servants bring the Sugar Plum Fairy. She says that the antidote can be made without the ingredients, but only if they can answer a riddle. According to the fairy, the effect of the love potion can only be broken by something even more powerful than the potion itself. This riddle leaves Marianne and Bog confused, and the two try to think of the answer. After hours without either of them finding out, the Sugar Plum Fairy gets tired of waiting and tells them that the answer lies in a story from Bog's past. She says that, years ago, King Bog fell in love and, to ensure that his love was reciprocated, he asked Sugar Plum to make the potion. When it was ready, Bog threw it on his beloved, but instead of the young woman falling in love with him, she felt only repulsion. Finally, the fairy says that this is because the potion has no effect on those who are already in love with someone else. With all this history, Marianne soon deduces that the only thing capable of breaking the potion's effect is true love. When he remembers all this, Bog is saddened, but Marianne consoles him and tells him that she has also been disappointed in love. In the middle of the conversation, the two soon realize that they have more in common than they imagined and decide to help each other solve this problem. They both set off through the forest and try to think how Dawn can find true love and thus end the effect of the potion. However, Bog and Marianne's thoughts turn to each other and they begin to feel a strange magic, very similar to love. Unfortunately, the moment is interrupted when Bog sees Roland's army invading his castle. He soon suspects that it was all Marianne's plan and sets out to stop the invaders. The princess tries to explain herself, but Bog doesn't want to hear what she has to say and goes off to attack Roland. However, Marianne doesn't give up and goes after him to prevent a tragedy from happening. Seconds later, Bog meets Roland, who says he has come in peace only to give him the love potion, as promised. While the warrior tries to convince Bog of his intentions outside the palace, Sunny seizes the chance and sets off for the prison in search of Dawn. Inside, he doesn't see the princess around, but he meets the fairy Sugar Plum, who asks him to free her once again. The elf agrees again and sets off with her so that they can both help their friend. Roland finally convinces Bog to give him the two princesses in exchange for the love potion. However, he lets slip that he intends to use it against Marianne, which provokes the king's fury and he decides to break off the deal. The two of them fly through the castle and engage in a fierce duel. Just then, Dawn appears on the battlefield and stands in front of Roland to prevent him from attacking the Bog King. Marianne also sets off with her sword and puts herself in the middle of the duel. Meanwhile, Roland grabs Dawn and warns them that if Marianne and Bog try anything, the princess could get hurt. The two don't believe the villain's threat and, with their weapons combined, they attack Roland. Even so, the warrior won't accept defeat and proves to have one last card up his sleeve: his army. The villain orders the soldiers to destroy the entire castle and they obey his order. Soon after, Roland frees Dawn, but takes Marianne out of the castle and Bog tries to follow him, but first, he helps his subjects and his mother escape. With everyone out of the castle, Bog and Dawn join forces to find Marianne. The fairy continues to be taken by Roland, but she manages to break free and points her sword at him. The guy tries to throw the potion in the fairy's face, but she pushes him away with a kick. After that, she returns to the castle entrance, where she finds Bog next to her sister. She tries to help them escape, but the entrance to the castle is about to collapse on them, so Bog throws Dawn up to Marianne and uses his strength to hold on to the wreckage while they escape. The sisters manage to escape, but the castle collapses completely, along with King Bog. The two leave for the border between the kingdoms, where they mourn the loss of their brave friend. Seeing Dawn sad, Sunny goes to her and comforts her. Suddenly, the magic of the love potion is undone and the princess realizes that, all along, her true love was the little elf. The two are happy that their love has been reciprocated, but next to them is Marianne, still saddened at having lost Bog forever. But to her joy, the king turns up alive amidst the wreckage of the castle, with only a wound on his arm. Bog is welcomed as a hero by everyone, especially Marianne. However, in a surprise attack, Roland reappears and pours the love potion in the fairy's face, so that she falls in love with him all over again. As everyone had feared, Marianne begins to act under the influence of the potion, with a sudden passion for Roland. However, it was all just an act and she punches the man right in the nose, who falls over the cliff, along with the rest of the potion. King Bog is relieved by this and soon remembers what Sugar Plum told him, that the potion doesn't work on those who are already in love. That's what happened to Marianne, who fell in love with Bog along the way, and the love is reciprocated. The two meet again and want to express their feelings for each other, but are still insecure because of past disappointments. To help them with this, Dawn convinces her sister to say what she feels, while Griselda advises her son to do the same. Then, motivated by their loved ones, the two declare their love for each other with a kiss and accept that their destiny is to be together, forever and ever. In the end, everything turned out well, except for Roland, who is trapped in the dark forest under the effects of the love potion. If that wasn't bad enough, the first creature he meets is a giant insect and, unable to control his emotions, he gives in to his new love with a passionate kiss. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.